I'm standing in front of Kennedy Yanko's incredible sculpture that's taking over this space at Salon 94 on East 89th Street. And this young artist actually has a two-part exhibition. One part is here at Salon 94, and the second part is in Tribeca at James Cohan Gallery. And these are, yes, they're sculptures, but they're also paintings. In fact, Kennedy, who is from St. Louis and grew up studying painting, considers herself to be a painter. They're undeniably sculptures. They're really in the round. You can walk around them and partake them in different ways. They're made up of two materials. Of course, there's metal that you can recognize because she sources these from industrial materials, from industrial dumps that she collects and then brings into her studio and reshapes and forces them to be what she wants them to be, these expressive abstract sculptures. But the second material, which you see here in this very vibrant, very expressive, painted form, are actually not a hard material to begin with. This is paint. In fact, actual paint that she pours on the floor, that she accumulates, and then that hardens just hard enough like leather to become malleable and soft, to be manipulated and expressed in the ways that you have here in the sculpture. She works on a small scale, she works on a large scale here. She really kind of bursts forth in this sculpture, takes up entire space. We lose track of what the form might have been originally, what this metal might have been. Was it a car? Was it a part of kind of an industrial sheeting? Was it a part of a roof? We will never know. Sometimes she doesn't know, but it becomes something else with her expression, with her own kind of creative drive. But it's the painting that you don't expect to be kind of this very dimensional, very sculptural element in the works. I mean, if we're looking at the sculptures, we're thinking about this, we're thinking about Chamberlain, we're thinking about maybe Linda Benglis. We think of perhaps Frank Stella, artists who preceded her in 20th century, but at the same time, there's something very anachronistic, almost like it is an ancient remnant of something that she's also thinking about. She's inspired by antiquity, by ancient sculptures. For example, she went to the Louvre Museum in her 20s, and she remembers seeing the Nike sculpture, the ancient Greek sculpture that towers on the staircase of the Louvre. And in some ways, if you walk around here, you sort of almost feel that breath, that dynamism, that kind of winged span in this sculpture as well. On one hand, undeniably abstract. On the other hand, there's always something very much about the body, about the human form, and the physicality of expression that imbue this work and all of her works. And come with me to see the somewhat smaller expressions in this gallery. And in this show, she's also experimenting with color. You have not just a singular monochromatic color like you have here with this blue, like a draped cloth. And think about the draped cloth that you see in old master paintings that you have expressed during the Renaissance, draping the figure of holy figures or those of saints. And at the same time, there's something very also ancient about some of these materials that she is sort of reflecting upon. And on the other hand, she's also experimenting with very expressive and bold colors in her new sculptures. I love the fact that some of them retain some of that industrial grit, that kind of very muscular structure. This is what makes you think about the bent forms of John Chamberlain. On the other hand, there's a feminine, there's a softness when she drapes these industrial materials with her paint. So again, they're both paintings and sculptures. They both have a softness that you have in these, and boldness sort of color you have here, or the very jewel-like little sculpture that you almost can pick up with your hands and kind of embrace. There's something so sensual about these, the pink, feminine, heart-like form that she has here, where you lose track and you lose sight of that it was an industrial material to begin with, because she softens it and she kind of embraces it. There's something just so incredibly sensual about these. And the final one on this floor is this sculpture that you have on the wall that both is reflective in the shine of the silver metal and matte in the way that she gathers, accumulates, and expresses the rest of it in paint with the colors kind of coming to be, the vibrancy, the I don't know, the joyfulness almost of these. Kennedy Yanko's sculptures can sometimes feel like torsos, like bodies, and you can see that in this particular work. You see the drapery of that paint coming over from the back. You see that sort of a bent of the waist, so it reminds us of an ancient Greek or Roman statuary, the abbreviated, truncated torsos that archaeologists would find. And in a sense, again, as much as it is clearly an industrial part of something, and she retains the color, the original color of the green, and then works matching it or playing off that with the paint skin. But she's clearly conscious that this isn't just an abstracted industrial part, that it reminds her in some ways of the body, of the human form that she then embraces and folds over with a paint skin. And then a sculpture like that, you can see that again, it serves as a pretext, as a premise for something else that she imagines and envisions. And you see that the paint skin here takes over and in fact drapes all the way down to the floor. If I were to touch this, this would be hard at this point. But again, originally, as she is manipulating it, as she's managing to force it into the shape that she wants it to be, the paint skin is soft enough for her to move and weave it around and kind of manipulate and physically play with it so that it becomes not just part of the work, but comes out into our space. And so in this case, in this space, she works on much larger scale. And you can see as we finish with that sculpture that's so big that it needed to be suspended on this sort of a system, on this brace system holding it intact and creating this very impressive form and very impressive sculptural installation.